Welcome to America's historic steam railroads. Logging railroads during the turn of the century were a vital industry that helped in the development of this great country of ours. These railroads were mostly operated as a narrow gauge railroad, with a few operating on the standard gauge system. Located in the Scenic Mountains of West Virginia, about 90 miles directly east of the capital of Charleston, we find the town of Cass, a reconstruction of a standard gauge logging railroad that operated there for 60 years with its mighty 3-truck Shay locomotives. Our trip today will take us on a 22-mile round trip to the top of a mountain named Bald Knob. We'll be climbing grades as steep as 11% and through 2 switchbacks. We'll visit the locomotive shop, see the original sawmill, and view some fantastic mountain scenery. I'm Bob Shriver, and I hope you enjoy your trip today on America's historic steam railroads.
Some of them will, when they first get on, they're kind of afraid of it. They'll hold their ears, but once you start moving, their eyes are lighting up and they start taking their hands off their ears, and they really enjoy it by the time you get started up the track for a short distance.
Cass Scenic Railroad at this time has 6 Shay locomotives. 3 of which are operational at this time. We have Shay 2, Shay 4, and Shay 5. We also have a Heisler locomotive that's operational at this time. The Western Maryland 6, which is another Shay locomotive, actually it's the last Shay locomotive ever built. It's a 120 class Shay. It's around 162 tons. It's currently on the shop floor. We hope to have it out by next season. We also have a Climax locomotive here at Cass. It is not operational at the time. We are in the process of restoring it. So in the next couple of years, we'll have all 3 types of geared locomotives here at Cass Scenic Railroad: the Shay, the Heisler, and the Climax.
This number 5, it come here brand new in 1905. It's a Class 80 type Shay, and I've run it for about 15 years.
The number 2 Shay is a Pacific Coast Shay. It's the only one of this type to ever operate east of Mississippi River. The number 2 is usually the lead engine on the Bald Knob train. Every morning you come and you gotta relube the grease cups for the rod bearings. You gotta fill all the reservoirs and the lubricators and lube the gears.
Well, Cass Scenic Railroad is a unique experience. It's a chance to step back in time and look at a way of life or an operation that is long past. This is a unique place. The company town. We have 13 company houses that we've refurbished, and we rent those to the public. Originally, Cass came to be as a lumber town, a lumber company town. There was a mill that operated here. There was a company store, which is still at Cass. At Cass Scenic Railroad, we have basically two runs. We run to a place called Whitaker Station 3 times a day, and we go to Bald Knob once a day. The Whitaker Station trip is a 2-hour round trip. It's 8 miles total, 4 up and 4 back, and as I said, we go there 3 times a day. Bald Knob, we leave once a day for Bald Knob. The train leaves at noon and is back at 4:30, and that's a 22-mile round trip to Bald Knob. We own the town of Cass and a tract of land at Whitaker Station, a tract of land at Bald Knob, and then we have, it's approximately 17 miles of track. So we're a long state park, probably one of the longest.
The building up ahead on the right is the remains of the old sawmill. It was a double band sawmill, and it was capable of cutting 250,000 board feet of lumber per day. The logs were brought into the mill the way of railroad flat cars, dumped into the mill pond, cut, stored to dry, and finally shipped out on the C&O Railroad at the rate of 40 carloads per day. In August of 1978 and February of 1982, most of the mill was destroyed by a fire. If you look on the right-hand side, you can see the cast shop. The cast shop was built in 1975 to replace the original shop that was destroyed by a fire in 1972. All maintenance work on the engines and cars is done right here at the cast shop.
The hardest part in preserving and keeping Cass Scenic Railroad operational is the maintenance. It's just overwhelming. The upkeep on the locomotives. There's always something that needs to be done, and there's a huge amount of maintenance involved in keeping these things operational. We do things here the same way that they were done years ago. So it's sort of like stepping back in time, and it's a real experience just to walk through the shop when those guys are down there working. The general public doesn't really realize, and at no fault of theirs, what's involved in running an operation like this.
When we go to Whittaker and back, we'll use around 1,500 gallon water and probably a ton of coal.
If you look on the uphill side of the train, you can see another section of track. As soon as we get through the lower switchback, we'll go up on that set of tracks. A brakeman will get off the train and throw the switch. After he does this, we're all set to go up the mountain. A switchback is the railroad's way of going up a steep grade without building a lot of extra track around the mountain. So what we're doing is zigzagging our way to Whittaker Station. The only difference now is we're going to be pulled instead of being pushed up the mountain. Now there are 2 switchbacks on our route today, and if we were to go to the top of the mountain, we could go the entire 11 miles with only 2 switchbacks.
The Whittaker stop is popular with passengers because of its great scenery and picnic tables. While the double headers and Shay locomotives pop off some steam, the cameras are busy. Time to board again to continue our trip to Bald Knob. Our fireman rakes the coals to break up any large cinders so we can keep a good hot fire going. Because the locomotives had been working hard pushing our train up the mountain, we stopped for a short while to take on some more water from an old railroad tank car. The water comes from a natural spring above the rail line and is pumped from the tank by the locomotives into their tenders. The brakeman signals all clear for our trip on up the mountain. Passengers are eager to get off at Bald Knob and get to the observation deck to look at the beautiful mountain scenery. But the shay draws a lot of admirers. These are 3 truck shays with 3 vertical cylinders. The cylinders drive a longitudinal shaft that in turn drive each axle through beveled gears to reduce speed and increase the pulling power. Now that we have reboarded and ready to leave Bald Knob, the deer come out to see if there are any snacks left.
The mountain ridge is visible from the downhill side or part of the Allegheny Mountain Range. The furthest ridge over is the dividing line between West Virginia and Virginia. A log skidder was a big machine with a high column that came out of the top and heavy steel cables that ran on pulleys from the column out into the woods where the loggers were cutting. The loggers would connect the logs to the steel cables and the skidder would drag the log back to the track.
The Scenic Railroad used the old logging cars. That was just the skeleton cars. And of course, there was nothing on there but just the bottoms, and we had to add the floors and the sides and the roof on them.
Opportunity to see spectacular collars on the leaves of the hardwoods here at Cass. It's really beautiful.
The loggers around here were called wood hicks. Most of the wood hicks wore plaid shirts and cut their pants legs off just below the knees so they could tuck them into their work boots. Their work boots had thick soles with 1/2 inch spikes coming out of them called corks. The cork shoes were designed to aid the men up over tree trunks and over piles of logs. They also wore wide-brimmed felt hats. And each day when a logger went out to work, he would cut a notch out of the brim. This was his way of keeping track of how many days back pay he needed to get the first time he got down to Cass. The men who worked on the mountains worked 6 days a week, 11 hours a day for about $1.50 a day. They worked up here anywhere from 6 to 10 months at a stretch. By that time, they were ready for vacation, which to them meant a trip down to Cass. To get to Cass, they'd hitch a ride on the log trains that headed down to the sawmill. When they got to town, the first place they went was to the payroll office. At the payroll office, each one was given a number, and this number was put on their time card, and a brass badge with the number on it was given to them. The brass badge had a hole in it so that the worker could put it around his neck. This is the way the immigrants were identified and were paid.
As we pass the shops and steaming backup locomotives, the cameras get another workout. It's time to stop at the water tank for more water before we arrive back at the cast depot.
It's really a special experience for me to see the people standing down here at the depot, and you know, when that train or that locomotive comes up the holler here and the steam's the valves are popping and the smoke's bellowing out of the stack. I mean, people just go crazy. Kids, it makes me feel good to see them having such a good time. I talk to a lot of people every day. And the overall thing that I get, especially from the older people that visit here, is the experience of maybe looking back or a little bit. I think it makes people think of a time when things were a little bit simpler, not as complex as they are today. I guess there's a certain amount of romance or good feelings that revolve around steam locomotives and this type of an operation. It's a great experience.